This is wild for the Chicago Bulls. We're going to be talking about 5 players that were absolute draft busts for the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to be looking at some players the Chicago Bulls could have perhaps drafted instead. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you are looking at another episode of Bulls Digest. And so we are looking at draft busts for the Chicago Bulls in the first round. So all these Chicago Bulls that we're going to be talking about have all been draft busts out of the first round. And so my first pick on this list is going to be Marquis Fizer. Personally, as a Chicago Bulls fan, he was probably one of the most frustrating Chicago Bulls to watch for me. And he reminds me a lot of Anthony Bennett, who was a bust for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was supposed to be a small forward / power forward that could dominate both inside and out, and that never came to fruition. In fact, in his 4 seasons with the Chicago Bulls, he only started 35 games. And on top of that, his career numbers were 9.5 points per game and also 4.3 rebounds a game. And what is even more interesting about Marquis Fizer and him not being a good fit for the Chicago Bulls is that Tim Floyd recruited him at Iowa State, coached him up there, and then also too, he coached him up in the NBA, and it still failed. He did not have a very successful career with the Chicago Bulls, and he didn't have a successful career after that with anybody else in the NBA. He was often injured as well. And so with that being said, I mean, this was really a tough situation. I think he's number 1 on the list. And the irony of that situation is I don't know if the Chicago Bulls necessarily learned from that, because if you're looking at the current situation that's going on with the Chicago Bulls, well, they have just re-signed a player that they drafted 4th overall, and he's averaging 9.5 points a game and 4.2 rebounds a game, and he has been injured over his first 4 seasons. I'm just saying. Next up, all right, so the next player to take a look at is Marquis Teague. I think that Marquis Teague absolutely was a draft bust for the Chicago Bulls, especially with the players that they could have had after him. But he drew comparisons to Steve Francis and his brother that you see back there in the picture, Jeff Teague. And so the thing about Marquis Teague is that he came in being an exceptional guard, that could go ahead and draw defenders and kick out and often make the right decision there. So he was very good at slashing. He was also pretty good at shooting the mid-range jumper as well, especially once he got space, and he had a quick first step. Some of the weaknesses for Marquis Teague were that he just didn't fight over screens enough defensively, so that fight defensively that you need, especially with Tom Thibodeau being there. Then also too, he did not shoot the basketball very well from downtown as well. He really struggled shooting the 3 ball. And then on top of that, some reports said that he really got tunnel vision sometimes and only saw one side of the floor, and that really made it tough for him as a decision maker. And I think that all those things actually came to fruition when he got into the NBA. And it's tough for him because he stepped in right when Derrick Rose went down, so he had an opportunity and just really never got a chance to seize that. And the irony of it is that Tom Thibodeau actually didn't want to get Marquis Teague. He actually wanted Draymond Green. In fact, I found this story out there where it had said that yes, Tom Thibodeau and his staff wanted Draymond Green, but instead the franchise went with Teague. And this kind of shows you where, Tom Thibodeau might have been with the franchise at that point. I think that that's one of the reasons why he got out of there, is just that they were not on the same page. And so when I looked further into this at the players that they could have taken, it wasn't just Draymond Green that they missed out on. In fact, when you look at what they could have had, you had Festus Ezeli right after, went to the Golden State Warriors, was a very good center. But look, they could have got Jay Crowder. They also could have got Chris Middleton and also Will Barton. And you do see Draymond Green as well. And I think, look, if Derrick Rose went down, can you imagine if we would have had Chris Middleton out there? I mean, that perhaps might have changed the course of the franchise right there. And so that is definitely a draft bust considering the players that went after Marquis Teague. All right, so next, Tony Snell, he had to be a draft bust for me. Look at the players after. You have Mason Plumlee, you have Tim Hardaway Jr., you have Reggie Bullock, you have Andre Robertson, who was a very good defender, and Rudy right there at 27. And so, yes, the players after that we did not get absolutely make that a draft bust. And in fact, they compared Tony Snell to his high school teammate Kawhi Leonard. That did not happen. And also to Luol Deng. He was supposed to be one of those two players. And when I looked at his draft comparison and going back to his profile, one of the things they talked about is he just wasn't aggressive enough. He often tried to let the game come to him. And that is the one thing that I do remember with him and his time with the Chicago Bulls. He was not a player that went out there and just went after it like that. He always wanted the game to kind of come to him. And that's the difference. Like you look at Kawhi Leonard is definitely a player that plays with that aggression, even though he doesn't show you anything, he doesn't say anything. And Luol Deng as well, he absolutely competed as well. I mean, he would be assertive out there, even though he was playing with Derrick Rose and other great players. Luol Deng knew how to go out there and impact the game. That's something we did not get from Tony Snell. You looked at the players after, that absolutely makes it a draft bust for me. Next up, when we're looking at players that were bust, it had to be Denzel Valentine. Look at this. Murray that went in this draft, Pascal Siakam at 27, and then at 19 and 20, Malik Beasley, and then you also have LeVert, who's playing with the Cavs now. And so, yes, players after that absolutely make it a draft bust. And so with Denzel Valentine, he was very good at Michigan State. In fact, he had won a very big award in college at Michigan State. And one of the things they talked about with him is that at that 6'6" frame, he just was not super athletic. He was also slow as well, but they talked about that he could do a lot of things on the basketball court. And really because of Draymond Green and his success, they were thinking that, well, Denzel Valentine would be able to come in and maximize his skill set. That did not happen. I understand that he was drafted into a team that actually did make the playoffs. And, look, we had Rajon Rondo, we had Dwayne Wade at the time, we had Jimmy Butler, and I think he just never got a chance to really find his niche, his rhythm. And it talks about the fact that he often forced up jump shots, which he did do at the NBA level. And another thing, too, is that they said that his three-point shooting actually got better his senior year. And the question mark was, well, would it translate into the NBA? And it absolutely didn't. So he didn't become a better three-point shooter. He also had some terrible shot decisions as well. And also, too, you just looked at the athleticism and just not being able to really find a niche with that team. Perhaps our first round could have ended differently with the Celtics when we went up 2-0 had we taken Pascal Siakam or somebody like that. And so, again, this unfortunately turns out to be a draft bust for the Chicago Bulls, which leads me to the last draft bust. And I think this is probably clear-cut on just about everybody's list, but it is Jay Williams. All right, so Jay Williams coming out of Duke. This guy won just about everything, including a national championship. He got to the Chicago Bulls and really struggled. I mean, after game one, it was a struggle for him. In fact, they talk about the fact he had 13, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists against the Celtics. But after that, 9.5 points a game, 4.7 rebounds. Really struggled, and I think the one thing that I looked at with Jay Williams is they talk about he just needed to develop a little bit more, all right? Because I remember this distinctly about Jay Williams. He actually shot the ball from downtown better than he shot his free throws, and I thought that that was extremely questionable, especially being a point guard. At the end of games, if you get fouled, you're going to have to make those free throws. And so, Jay Williams definitely needed to develop a little bit more, understand the NBA game, and he just didn't get a chance to. And on top of that, the struggle that he had his rookie year, he also went out and had a incident where he had an accident on the motorcycle, which not only maybe ended his career in the NBA or not the Chicago Bulls, not just the Chicago Bulls, but also to the NBA. Couldn't get that out. So I think that motorcycle accident really it stopped his career with the Chicago Bulls and the NBA. And so, yes, I think that because of that, that made it for sure a draft bust for the Chicago Bulls. But they actually made that right. The very next year, they went out and got Kirk Hinrich to go ahead and help us progress at the point guard, and then the Chicago Bulls started to take off from there. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think out of all those players. Who was the draft bust for you? Was it Marcus Fizer? Was it Tony Snell? Was it Marquis Teague? Was it somebody else that I haven't listed that you are saying that was the absolute draft bust for the Chicago Bulls? Would love to see what you guys are thinking in the comments. And so I want to thank you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the video. It means a lot to me as we try to reach 5,000 subscribers before the NBA season starts. I want to let you know that 65.3% of you that watch the videos are not subscribed. So make sure you continue to mash that subscribe button for me, as it means a lot as we try to reach that goal. And we're 2 weeks away from training camp. And even though we are talking about draft bust of the past, no pressure on modest Buzelis. Go Bulls. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace, peace, peace.